Live from the Deep State Chronicle studios in St. Petersburg, Florida. I'm your host today, Will Gray Eagle. Welcome to the Deep State Chronicle. Today is February the 17th, 2020. Today is Monday. Today's coverage will be on the aftermath of the Adam and Eve story. We have more work that needs to be done, and I insist that we both start and finish this one today. Let's begin. To the wolves of the night, who on hearing the winds of the past, howl into the future. Life is but a brief master, an episode, a tick of the clock. There is so little time, indeed, to learn from the past. Aftermath. We begin with the first chapter, our precursor, on page 5. During 1967 through 1968, I was on special assignment with a large aerospace firm on an advanced research project, high in security. While on that project, I found myself conjuring up some questions as to the effort on human physiology when a human is placed in the extreme low-density magnetic fields of outer space. Outer meaning beyond the radiation belts, such as astronauts encounter halfway between the Earth and our moon. On my own time, I worked with molecular structure of proteins in the human body and on the possibility of the low-density magnetic field environment having a carcinogenic or cancer-generating effect. It took me a few weeks, and I arrived at two conclusions. First, the protein structure, such as in the muscles and connective tissues, would literally come apart after about 3 months in that environment. And second, in the same duration of time, any person in that environment would be subjected to a general malignancy, cancer, from head to toes. I wrote a brief paper on the results of my study and submitted it to my supervisor. It was filed away and ultimately forgotten, and I was informed that it was not within the responsibilities of my task with the company. In 1968, there was an article on the front page of the Los Angeles Times about two scientists at Hahnemann Medical Center who had wondered about the same thing as I. Only they decided to find the answer through experimentation with mice. They put a batch full of mice, all genetically of the same strain, in aluminum cylinders about 6 inches or so in diameter, half in a magnetic field environment, the same as we live in, and the other half in a magnetic field environment equivalent to being halfway between the Earth and our moon. Both sets of cylinders had the same physical environment, the same number of male and female mice, the same food, the same lighting, the same play environment, and the same water supply. After 3 months, the mice in the low-density cylinders all suffered the same effects. First, they all simply came apart, all in their protein structure. And second, Over 35% suffered visible cancers which could be considered head to toes. No analysis was made of internal cancers. That's interesting. I was shocked to learn that my conceptual work had been verified by experimental work, that I immediately made a telephone call to the two scientists. They were equally shocked to learn of my work and surprised that I knew why their results had occurred. My supervisor was also shocked at the accuracy of my predictions. The scientists invited me to Hahnemann Medical College to spend a week with them. My company cheerfully paid my traveling expenses. During my conferences with them in Philadelphia, they told me that there was something which was not released to the press and was not generally known. They hoped I could help them with reasons for these results, which disturbed them. The first thing they told me was that the mice turned criminal in their low-density magnetic field environment. Criminal, I exclaimed. How in the dickens do you tell when a mouse turns criminal? I asked. Very simple was the answer. There are very basic end cruelties for almost all mammals. Mice and humans are no exception. Cannibalism is the ultimate cruelty, and they turned cannibalistic. Even though they had plenty of the same food as the mice in the normal magnetic field strength cylinders, they indulged in cannibalism as a preference. The mice in the normal cylinders treated each other normally and ate only their normal food. He paused a moment. There's another thing which really confounds us, he continued. These same mice who turned cannibalistic indulged in forcible rape literally around the clock. That and murder are the other end cruelties. Wow. Is it possible that you could tell the difference between rape and forcible rape in mice? I asked. It seems impossible to differentiate in mice. Oh, yes, he said. It happens all the time in the animal world. For instance, sea lions and sea elephants. They use forcible rape commonly. In these mice, almost every act of sexual intercourse in the low-density cylinders was forcible rape, whereas in the normal cylinders, we never saw it. Of course, we must assume it may have happened when we weren't looking. Of course, in humans, it's easy to differentiate between forcible rape and rape, I offered. Legally, it may not be so easy to differentiate, he replied, but morally, I guess it's easy. But what we're interested in here is why they resorted to forcible rape just because of the environment of a low-density magnetic field. We were hoping you could give us at least a concept to go on. This is truly something else. I told him that my work did not involve the study of legends concerning civilizations in the years leading to cataclysms, when the Earth's magnetic field was decreasing at an increasing rate as they approached the null zone, and in every instance it appeared that criminality, essentially man's inhumanity towards man, appeared to become overwhelming. Even the Navajo Indians spoke of it in their legend of their approach to a cataclysm, but they called it adultery. It's quite possible that their definition of rape in any other form, be it forcible or not, was included in the term adultery. After all of my study, it seemed strange that it had not entered my mind that rape and forcible rape are a part of the overwhelming criminality in the precursor period preceding a cataclysm. Later, I concluded that it was because I was searching for facts, and it never appeared to me in print to assume it to be a natural part of the overwhelming criminality. However, seemed to be a proper assumption. After some consideration, I gave them my conclusion. It would commit that a lowering or lowered magnetic field environment could give its occupants a sense of impending doom. Certainly, there would be a feeling that something out of control was destroying them, so why not get what they want irrespective of consequences? In the case of humans, those without empathy turn criminal first. In the case of animals, it is probably proper to assume that there is little or no empathy there to start with. Now, I'm not a fundamentalist Christian. In fact, I don't really identify as being religious at all. This is the first time I'm reading this particular portion of the book. And just as well to you, it is a surprise to me. What they go on about saying about we're in the end times. And even people who aren't specifically religious seem to have a sort of unconscious sense something's about to go down. Chan Thomas wrote about this, I believe, in 93. After my trip home from Philadelphia, I examined statistics from around the world. The United Nations was reporting huge increases of rape in every nation, regardless of economic status, intellectual level, social mores, governmental status, family structure, plus whether a nation were in either temperate zone or in torrid zone. And regardless of ethnicity or religion, or whether a nation had an official state religion, the staggering rise in rape worldwide was a leading factor in the rise of the general crime rate around the world. In the 1960s and 1970s, I was given speeches on the subject of cataclysmology all over the United States. I remember predicting, after presenting the whole picture, that by 1990, crime would be at such a level in our country that the law enforcement agencies of our nation would not be able to cope with it. Those of us who are old enough to remember see everyday traffic violations that would have immediately drawn citations now ignored by the police. They are simply too busy. It has gotten so that detectives are so busy that they cannot investigate your case if you are a victim of an attempted murder. They are too busy investigating actual murders. And if you are a victim of a $100,000 or a $400,000 fraud, they cannot be bothered with you. They are too busy investigating frauds in the billions of dollars. That includes attorney generals and staffs, plus district attorneys and staffs, plus the SEC and federal courts. The crime side includes confidence artists, top executives, bankers, savings and loans executives, management personnel, family men, thieves, burglars, addicts, those who sell to addicts, murderers, and almost any level of society, from notables to the homeless. This brings up an extremely important issue. As before, as sure as the sun rises in the east and sets in the west, the time will come when you must decide whether you desire that you and your family should survive the next cataclysm. You will have to decide how to survive over the long term afterward, if you do survive. You must pick a place to survive where survival is possible, and the most likely place being on the eastern side of a mountaintop, which will be accessible when the time comes. Most important of all, you will have to find a way to protect yourself and your family through the criminally worsening precursor years and the following aftermath years. Surely, you will have to have provisions, tools, lumber, and supplies with which to build a storm refuge from the cataclysm. Clothing, first aid, medical books, binoculars, firewood, means to start a fire, and a library with which to teach the young. Include the SIBA Pharmaceutical volumes by Frank Netter, MD. Further, include my book, Natural Childbirth, Self-Taught. I will be buying that book, actually, because when this happens, there are no hospitals anymore. And we do realize that if it weren't for hospitals and medical infrastructure, significantly more of our mothers and wives of our children would be dead today. Going back as recently as the 1800s, I do believe most women actually died giving birth to their children. In the preceding paragraph, I started by saying more important of all, etc. How will you protect your family against attack when the police cannot? How will you protect your wife and daughters against gang rape and murder if the marauding gangs pay you a sudden visit? Those who have not prepared for a cataclysm far outnumber those who have. Those who have not met, those who have not, will want what you have and will kill you to get it, both shortly before and after the cataclysm. You will be besieged by those begging you to share your provisions. They will appear to be nice families wanting to share, wanting to help, and wanting what you have. Believe me, they will kill you to get it. If you look at history, let alone prehistory, when those who have no protection, the have-nots will kill the haves to get what the haves have, and they will destroy it to get it. Are you ready to make an instantaneous decision to protect yourself and your family? A decision which will make the lives and safety of yourself and your family inexorable. If you want to see if your visitors have evil intent, so that afterward you can take protective action, you and your family will wind up murdered, raped, and dead. And history dictates that you will be tortured just as a means of supplying your visitors with pleasure. Survival is not a nice or easy picture to paint when all of the forces intended to protect and defend you have completely vanished. If you live at the time of a cataclysm and have the time to prepare for it, you will have to assume attitudes and perspectives, principles and actions, and willingness to act in multifaceted ways you never dreamed of you would in order to survive. You will have to abide by the law until there is no law, then survive by the rules necessary to make survival possible under all potential onslaughts. How do you know when it is time for a cataclysm? The answer is simple. Go to a store soon where you can purchase top quality magnetic compass. One herein you can lock the free north-south indicating needle in any position you desire. The bigger it is, the better off you are. Then purchase an accurate stopwatch. Take them home and put them by your bedside. Have a paper under the compass with two diameters marked off at 90 degrees to each other in a circle larger than the diameter of your compass. Put your compass on the paper, centered within the circle. Unlock the compass needle and set it on north. Set the compass case so that its north coincides with the compass needle, and place the paper underneath so that one of its diameters is on the north-south line of the compass needle and the compass case. Tape the paper in place, put the compass back so that its needle is pointed north, along the north-south line on the paper underneath. Then go to bed and have a good night's sleep. In the morning, hold the compass steadily as it is positioned in the circle beneath it, and lock the needle in place. Then turn the compass case left or right 90 degrees. Use the 90-degree line on the paper underneath as a guide. Hold the case absolutely still, then release the needle. The needle will then swing toward north and oscillate back and forth, diminishing in its swing a little each time. With the stopwatch, observe the time necessary for the compass needle to stop oscillating, from its release time to first quiet settled down time. There will come the day, if indeed we are going to enter the galaxy's magnetic null zone as soon as the mathematics table indicates we will, that you will find the settling down time increasing as the needle's oscillations will become sluggish. It could be that the time for settling down will stay nearly the same, but the number of oscillations required for the needle to settle down will decrease. So perhaps in addition to recording the stopwatch time duration, also record the number of oscillations required for the needle to settle down. Either way, you will discern by your data that indeed the Earth's magnetic field strength has decreased to a critical level. Now take your family and your entire survival storage to your retreat. I hope you will not have waited this long to pack it and get it ready to go. Leave behind everything you can do without. Be sure to take with you whatever instruments and the supplies for those instruments needed for your protection and survival. Be sure your family is well trained in their use. There is a mathematical law that any predictions based on extending existing data are subject to the possibility of a fifth-degree error. That means that any prediction for the time of the next cataclysm is subject to that error, and nothing can be done about it. Do you know that the law applies equally to the President's and the House of Representatives and the Senate's ability to form an annual federal budget? They can't fix a budget and stick to it. The best they can do is guess estimate. In the case of the magnetic compass, it experimentally establishes a known data point each day. So you will always know within a day whenever your prediction should be. If 2000 AD passes by without a cataclysm, the best thing for you to do is to stick with it and maintain your vigil. When the day does come, you will be happy to have advance notice, as short as it might, or as short or as long as it might be. It was found that in Tiwanaku, the populace was caught entirely off guard. With people doing what they normally do, everyone is caught completely surprised in the unbelievable magnitude and suddenness of the maelstrom of a cataclysm's precipitous onslaught. If you choose to go all out with your survival preparation, do decide to indulge in some heavy work in pouring concrete with walls and ceiling up to 4 feet thick, with extremely heavy steel reinforcing on the eastern side of the peak of a high top mountain. If you can, pick 2, 3, or 4 families who will share your survival desires with you to the extent that they will work with you in preparing for survival of the cataclysm. Be sure to have families who can get along together extremely well. Have good, strong teenage children who can be friends, have record keeping capabilities to keep records of marriages, births, and death. Have family trees for records also. At least one father should be ordained non denominationally, and be sure no one's a drinker, smoker, or narcotic user. Bear it in mind that the odds for survival are mighty, mighty low. They're lower than winning the Publishers Clearinghouse $10 million. Of course, those odds include the millions upon millions of persons who think the whole concept of cataclysms is a bunch of rot and don't even try to prepare for survival. Perhaps the best way to look at the odds for survival is to look at how many survive out of those who really prepare for survival. We can't even estimate that for who knows from one past experience. It all depends upon the best efforts possible in planning and preparing for the cataclysm, and as well the post-cataclysm, structurally, energy-wise, tool-wise, medically, spiritually, travel-wise, maintenance-wise, security-wise, communications-wise, food supply-wise, and don't forget the can opener. What to take to read is vitally important. What tools are necessary to take is of ultimate importance. If you do not survive, do remember that death is but a stepping stone. Everyone goes through its portals. Furthermore, what a way to go. How many humans ever get to see a cataclysm? And after you go through those portals, there is a peace that defies description, that passeth all through understanding. I wouldn't be surprised if I see you there. And further, I wouldn't be surprised if we have a nice talk. Dr. Thomas, when I see you on the other side, I do hope that we get to have such a conversation. That is it for this segment. The next chapter starts on page 19, Evolution. Good morning again, everyone. I am Will Gragel. You are watching the Deep State Chronicle. Again, it is February the 17th, 2020. It is Monday. I will return for next segment after I eat some breakfast.